Raddus of the Rebel Alliance. All squadron leaders report in.
Admiral, this is
Blue Leader standing by.
This is Gold Leader, standing by.
This is Red Leader.
Rogue One was a fantastic film filled to the brim with excellent original designs. The U-Wing, TIE's Reaper and Striker, and Delta and Zeta class shuttles were fantastic, and the Hammerhead Corvette and VCX-100, despite not being new, were great live-action remasters. But while all of those were fine dining, Admiral Raddus's Profundity was where they really let the design team cook. This massive star cruiser was straight out of a 5 Michelin star restaurant. It was sleek, beautiful, and intimidating, without overshadowing the bigger Mon Calamari ships of the original trilogy. I'm a sucker for ships that look like boats, and no other boat ship does it like the MC75 does it. So we had better take a look. I'm Joey from Radio Free Coruscant, and this is everything there is to know about the MC75.
Sir, those are rebel ships. Get Admiral forward, immediately.
Red and Gold Squadrons, attack formations.
Defend the fleet. Blue Squadron, get to the surface before they close that gate.
Copy you, Admiral.
Blue Squadron, on me!
Design. The Mon Calamari shipyard's MC-75 Star Cruiser was a former Mon Calamari city ship converted into a starship for the Galactic Civil War. Like most Mon Calamari ships, no two MC-75s were identical, but they did all follow the same basic design. It had a long, boat-like main hull with a reinforced, thicker section in the middle, and 12 ion engines at the rear, 4 large, 4 medium, and 4 small. It was covered in many bumps and blisters like other Mon Cal ships, though they were much subtler than most, giving it a more conventional and less organic appearance. The MC-75's most distinctive feature were its pair of large masts. The shorter dorsal fin was a communications and sensor tower, and the much larger ventral fin held its receiving antenna and command bridge. These fins were designed to give it an intimidating resemblance to large predatory fish. The bridge, at the very bottom of the ship, had an enormous window to give the captain a commanding view of the planet below the ship, and to allow the command staff to supervise arrivals and departures in the hangar. In front of the ventral fin was a large area that could have different purposes depending on the individual ship. Military MC-75s had a large Star Destroyer-style docking bay and a small hangar here, while civilian passenger liners had a civic atrium. I don't believe we have ever seen this variant depicted on screen, but I like to think that it came with a glass floor to give guests a view of whatever planet the ship was orbiting, similar to the view the captain had down below. Behind the ventral fin, at least on military MC-75s, was a large ordnance pod. The rest of the ship was dotted with weapons as well. There were also several variants of the MC-75. The MC-75A had no vertical fins and an enormous dorsal weapons pod. The MC-75B had no vertical fins but had 2 large wings at the rear. The MC-75C did have the vertical fins, but they were vertically flipped and moved to the back of the ship. There was also an additional weapon pod on the bottom where the large fin was on an original MC-75. Specifications. The MC-75 was a fairly large ship, measuring in at 1,204.4 meters long, 264 meters wide, and 435.5 meters tall, or about 3/4 of a mile long by 866 feet wide and 1,429 feet tall. It had 4 Gmon 15 ion drives and 8 other Kuat drive yards sublight engines that could propel it to 650 km per hour in atmosphere or 404 miles per hour. It had a Class 1 hyperdrive plus a Class 9 backup. The MC-75 required 3,225 crew and could carry 1,000 passengers. I'm assuming these numbers would be different on the MC-75s outfitted as passenger liners, because the crew outnumbering the passengers 3 to 1 wouldn't make a lot of sense there. But in a heavily armed warship, requiring dozens of gunners and technicians, it would. In fact, I would guess that the passengers and crew are reversed on civilian MC-75s, with 1,000 crew and 3,000 passengers. Its cargo capacity is unknown, but presumably quite large, and it could carry 2 years of consumables. The MC-75 was quite heavily armed, at least the military version anyway. It carried 20 point defense twin heavy laser cannons, 12 broadside turbo laser cannons, 4 heavy ion cannons, 12 proton torpedo launchers, and 6 tractor beam projectors. It could carry 36 starfighters and had room in the docking bay for one ship as large as a CR-90 Corvette. And all of that firepower came at a steep cost. While it was not available to the public for purchase, the MC-75 had a value of 88 million credits. History. After the separatist invasion of Mon Cala during the Clone Wars, the Mon Calamari people began preparing some of their city ships for planetary evacuations in case of future attacks. And a few years later, in 18 BBY, they were indeed invaded again, this time by the Galactic Empire. Due to their preparations, many Mon Calamari were able to make their escape in these city ships, including MC-75s. Some MC-75s were already in use as transports and passenger liners, so it wasn't terribly difficult to convert those being used as buildings into additional liners and transports. After the formation of the Rebel Alliance, several MC-75s joined the rebellion and underwent refits to convert them into warships. The first of these to be battle-ready was the Profundity. Before the invasion of Mon Cala, the Profundity had been the civic governance tower of the underwater city Nistolum beneath Mon Cala's polar ice floes. Mayor Raddus became an officer in the Mon Calamari Planetary Defense Services when the invasion of Mon Cala began, and became the Profundity's captain when it fled the planet. He eventually went on to be one of the first Mon Calamari to join the rebellion, pledging the Profundity to their cause. Raddus would quickly become promoted to Admiral and put in charge of the early rebellion's modest fleet. In 1 BBY, after a band of rebels disobeyed the orders of Rebel Command and infiltrated the Imperial security complex on Scarif, Raddus gathered as many ships as he could and scrambled them to Scarif along with the Profundity. While most of the fleet that was not destroyed in battle fled when Darth Vader's Star Destroyer arrived at the scene, Raddus and the Profundity stayed behind to receive the Death Star plans being transmitted from the ground team. The Devastator disabled the Profundity and Vader boarded it, killing the ship's entire crew, including Raddus. Fortunately, the Death Star plans were able to be transferred to Princess Leia's ship, the Tantive 4, which had been in the Profundity's docking bay for hyperdrive repairs and hadn't had time to undock before the fleet abruptly raced to Scarif. Officially, the Profundity was destroyed after the battle, though some sources state that it was kept intact and used in an Imperial weapon testing range. After the Battle of Scarif, several more MC-75s completed their combat refits and joined the Rebel Alliance. While none of them went on to have as big of an impact on galactic history as the Profundity, they served with honor in many other engagements in the Galactic Civil War. The Accordance, Aspiration, Silver Coronet, and Temperance were a few of the more prominent Rebel MC-75s, and after the mutiny of the Mon Cala Mercantile Fleet in 1 ABY, many more escaped Imperial-occupied Mon Cala to join the rebellion as well. After the Civil War, the New Republic continued to use MC-75s for several years. One of these, the Temperance, was placed under the command of General Hera Syndulla and was used to defend the construction facilities producing Starhawk battleships. Decades later, several MC-75s, including the various variants of the MC-75, were present for the Battle of Exegol. And that's everything there is to know about the MC-75 Star Cruiser. Let me know what you think of this ship. I'm a big fan of it, but it's not one you see people talk about too often, so I'd be curious if anyone else is. Make sure you subscribe as well and share the channel with a friend. Then I will see you next week. RFC, out.